Zelensky leaves Washington with a transformed relationship with Donald Trump. A president once publicly lectured and humiliated is now being welcomed as a partner with a cause of his own. American media are asking whether Trump has finally understood that Ukraine is no longer only asking for help. It may now have something the United States itself needs. Joining me now is Kateryna Lisunova, Ukrainian journalist and media advisor at Razom for Ukraine. Kateryna, welcome. I'm so happy to see you here.
Thank you, Nataliia. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I actually love what you do.
Thank you so much.
Exchanging compliments.
I'm taking, but it's mutual. I love what you do, and so now it's your stage here. So, Kateryna, was the visit a genuine turning point, or has Washington simply changed the tone without changing the policy? How do you think?
That's a good question. If so far it looks there are, at least publicly, there are statements that there are going to be actual movements, actual, like you said, change in the policies, which means, which we already heard, and actually it's a very big step to allow Ukraine manufacture Patriot missiles and probably even systems, Patriot systems, in Ukraine or on third country, but in Europe domestically, which is a big thing because this is the biggest problem that Ukraine has right now. It's something that President Zelensky repeats many times, but it's not something that is surprising. You can see it for yourself, and you actually being in Kyiv in Ukraine know that ballistic missiles is the only power that left in hands of Russia that they're extensively using because they see how they're losing in any other front. It's especially with development of weaponry, with all the technology that Ukraine is right now developing. Russia has only one upper hand, it's ballistic missiles, and this is the only one thing that Ukraine need to overcome right now to have a bigger perspective of possibility to pressure Russia to finish this war. And coming back to your question, if we're talking about the precise concrete steps, we can talk about this one, about earlier announcement that Ukraine will have this possibility to manufacture it in Ukraine, which is a big step from administration and from the United States in general. Throughout this meeting, Zelensky said, actually answering my question, that there were conversations regarding providing Ukraine with additional Patriot ballistic missiles. And he said that Donald Trump understands the necessity, and Zelensky said he's very grateful, and supposedly they are moving forward possibly in this manner as well. And there is also information that there was concrete conversation about possibility of providing Ukraine special so-called winter package of aid, because everybody talking about the fact that this winter might be one of the most difficult so far. And we know that the last winter was the most terrible you can imagine. If the next one could be, at least by the predictions of Russian possible attacks, could be even worse, it's something to be very much prepared for. And as far as American media saying, and there are sources saying right now that among the conversations, there was also conversation of providing Ukraine with this special winter package of military aid.
Okay, Kateryna, but what about the deadlines of the interceptors for ballistic missiles? Any rumors? Any news?
So far, I cannot spread the rumors, especially if I don't have concrete source right now. It's hard to predict, but it's something, I suppose, one of the biggest things that Ukrainian president is pressuring right now throughout his visit. And it's something for us to see if the public statements, as you said, would match the actual political actions by the administration.
Kateryna, first thing in the morning I did here in Kyiv in Ukraine, I just checked your social media to see the atmosphere in the Washington during the visit of Ukrainian president. Then I saw the picture of Donald Trump hugging and smiling with the Ukrainian president. What was the atmosphere surrounding this particular visit?
It looks like it was positive. First of all, one of the good things is not it's not anymore for one of the first meetings of Zelensky and Trump. He already had a number of one-on-one meetings and conversations, and they were so far no bad. So far so good. So we can just say about constant thing that we see right now throughout the last meetings between them, that it looks very positive and optimistic. If I can talk about something that interesting to mention is that throughout the last visits, which were quite positive, I will not speculate about the reasons, but the facts are here that we cannot see the Vice President JD Vance present in those meetings. And we remember that the first meeting in the White House was very different from what we're seeing right now. And one of the big role of this heated exchange, played specifically Vice President JD Vance. And we can see that at least at the latest meetings, we don't see his presence, despite the fact that JD Vance was present with at the meeting with Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, which happened just after the meeting with Zelensky. So we can only speculate about the reasons, but it seems to me that White House also trying to atmosphere to be as good as it possible, because it will benefit both sides.
What about the sanctions package of Lindsey Graham that he was working on this package till the last his days? So what are the outcome right now?
This is important question, and we can see some more specific possibilities of deadlines here. But those deadlines are actually not very optimistic, because we can see that despite the fact that answering to my question, Senator said that we need to keep the momentum here. We need to pass it as fast as possible. We can see that they cannot keep the momentum for a long time, because Senate will be working only till August 7th. Then they go to recess. House is already on recess. They all coming back in the beginning of September, which means Senate has time, like a little bit more than a week right now, to pass this bill in this chamber. And then it will be up to House to finish the final passage of the bill. But House will be back only in September. There are already conversations about the opposition inside of Democratic Party regarding this bill, because this bill provides quite a lot of amount of possibilities for Trump to implement tariffs. This is something which is against policies of Democrats. And we are right now before big elections, midterms elections, which may change actually situation and power in Congress, specifically in the House. So there are a lot of things involved, which means this bill will still take some time, which is quite sad, because as you said, this is something that Senator Graham was working throughout most of his life, and it was something that he emphasized in his very last day. And if there are a lot of conversations about what was the last conversations of his with his staffer, who he was calling his staffer and asking to call 911, and he was saying that he feels chest pain, and he was, during even that conversation, mentioning sanctions on Russia, on Iran. He's saying, like, I have so much things to do, I cannot die right now. So this is a little bit sad that it still takes so long. It should have been much faster. The bill existed for a long time. It's not like there was not enough time to get to know the bill and read the bill. So I hope it will pass. I think a lot of people who want to keep this legacy of Senator Graham and who supports Ukraine, there are a lot of people who are actually passionate about this bill to pass, but we're confronting right now the situation with the recess, the situation with inside debates among Democratic Party. By the way, there is interesting insider information that supposedly Zelensky actually had a good impact on Democrats before this procedural vote that we saw last night, because, like I said, there are a lot of skepticism among Democrats, not specifically about the support of Ukraine, but specifically about some provisions in this bill. And so his speech, his conversation with senators this Tuesday helped to push them forward and vote in favor. At least this is what people who've been in the room saying, and also there were not only senators present, there were also representatives from the House. And which means the conversation was about how to pass it not only in the first chamber in the Senate, but also go further in the House. So people from both chamber were present, and speech of Zelensky actually encouraged them to pass this bill. At least it was only procedural vote right now. It hasn't passed yet, but there was a momentum. This is a very big question if the momentum will stay, if everybody will vote for that in favor, and if it passed at least in September.
That's a good insight, Kateryna. After the meeting, there were reports that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner may travel to Ukraine to revive diplomatic efforts. Is this a concrete result of this visit? Or maybe that's a result of a MAGA supporter and ally of Trump, Laura Loomer, visiting Ukraine for a week?
We cannot, it would be very unfair to say that she didn't play a role here. Because she also, after the statements that, according to my sources as well, that supposedly Witkoff and Kushner are planning to come to Kyiv after this first publications, she also shared that according to her sources, it may happen in the nearest 2 weeks. The only problem, though, the specific number, dates, the timeline of 2 weeks, it's something that Ukrainian people have heard a lot of times already. And the promises of Jared Kushner and Witkoff to come to Ukraine, we already have heard it a lot. Why do Ukraine need that, and will they come? And what role Laura Loomer played in this? I would say that her public statements obviously impacted the fact that there are more conversations about it again, and the conversation was revised about the possibility of them coming to Kyiv and plans of them coming to Kyiv. I will quote her here, which was, I think, a very powerful statement that she said. The future of this war should be decided not throughout the meetings in Moscow, but throughout the meetings in Kyiv. And I think that was a very powerful message. And I think it's impacted in some way a lot of players in this political game. It's one thing. The second thing, why is it important for Ukraine? Because we already see that visit to Ukraine, to Kyiv, to other cities, there is nothing more impactful in the diplomatic world than see it for your own eyes, than feel it for your own feelings, hear Russian shellings, Russian attacks, air raid sirens, all of it, to feel it through yourself. And then it's much harder to come back to the United States and say that, and repeat some Russian propaganda. It is much harder to do that when you went through that kind of experience. That's one thing. So it will definitely impact them. And maybe it's the reason why Moscow doesn't want them to go. Because if you remember, there was a possibility of them come to Kyiv when they were visiting Moscow on the way back to come to Kyiv. And there was some announcement that they made that there was a possibility of this happening. But then Ushakov went publicly and said, we asked them kindly to not come, and they didn't. So it was like a public pressure on them to not come to Ukraine, because there was like a big process of those negotiations involved, and they didn't want to upset any of the sides, specifically Russian side, I suppose. But the fact is that it will definitely impact them. It is something that's been talked about but hadn't happened yet. So it's kind of became like a goal. But in the same time, we need to talk about tangible results. Tangible results, it's always the last and the most important goal is more weaponry for Ukraine, more protection for Ukraine, so Ukraine could not just stop this war, but possibly liberate all the captured territories. This is the main goal that we are talking about, because all of the other things are little steps to achieve this main thing, to liberate Ukrainian people who are right now under occupation. And if that thing will help, God bless.
God bless, yes. When I had a short interview, I would call it a big B-roll with Laura Loomer in Kyiv, on Maidan Square and Independence Square in Ukraine, in Kyiv. And we were talking, and I said to her that I thought she's going to be like an air defense, like a General Kellogg was coming to Ukraine. And we were calling it kind of a joke in that we have here Kellogg's night, right? So the Russia is not attacking us and we can have a proper sleep while he's here. But you know that Russians were attacking Ukrainian capital a few times while she was here. So, well, it seems like she's not a friend of Russia today anymore. She's not a friend of Margarita Simonyan anymore, and so on. So, yeah, not a special guest for them.
Yeah, which makes, honestly, automatically her our friend. So enemy of our friend is our friend.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking that Loomer has a large conservative audience and millions of people and direct access to Trump. It's not a secret. I thought, could her reversal on Ukraine change the views of Republicans voters?
It's a very good point, but we need to mention very important fact that Republican voters' views being changed before Laura Loomer came. If you remember, last year already, there were a lot of conversations about the fact that social numbers, the analytics says that there is a growing support among Republicans to Ukraine. And there is a very interesting specific thing that the support to Ukraine is growing not among classical conservative Republicans, but specifically among MAGA Republicans. And it's a very interesting point. There is also another interesting research which says their support to Ukraine is growing even more through the lens of not supporting Russia. So if we talk about MAGA specifically, they may little less support Ukraine, but more don't like Russia and want to defeat Russia. And that's what the sentiment we can talk about if we're talking about Republicans and MAGA. And beginning of this year, actually, and also I think last year, there was a conversation, the time runs so fast. There was also a conversation that the support among MAGA and Republicans in general to Ukraine is growing. The hatred towards Russia is growing, but the policy of administration, it's not changing. And that was actually a big conversation about the fact that it's not reflecting actual feelings and the sentiment of its people who elected this party, who elected this president. And so what we can witness right now, it's alignment on those feelings. They're changing it in favor of what their voters actually publicly stating and saying. But if we're talking about Laura Loomer, yes, she is very influential in MAGA conservative circles. She has a lot of people following her. And I would tell also that it's also like a little bit of insight. I think they didn't share it anywhere. Her team was not just emotionally traveling to Ukraine. They were preparing themselves. They were getting to know more insights in Ukraine. At some point, she started to follow me on Twitter and other influential Ukrainians who covering the issue of Ukraine-US relations for the American audience in English. So she and her team, I know her producer, they were trying to be familiar more and more with what is going on in Ukraine. So it was a process. It's not like she just flipped like that without no reason. There was a process. It was a very, I would say, psychological and human process when she was understanding the things that going on, following those people who covering it each day, and actually asking more questions about the details inside of Ukrainian policies, which I would say one of the examples that was a big work done before she decided to come.
Well, that's a great point. Kateryna, you know, midterm elections are approaching. And after I've heard everything about Republicans, I don't know what to ask. Will they change any relation to Ukraine?
I think the most important question would sound a little bit different. What should we expect from Democrats? Because the biggest expectation right now that Democrats will flip House. This is something that happens each 2 years. It's not unusual. It's a very common thing to happen. People getting a little bit tired from policies that are happening, and they're flipping one of the chambers. So the House might be in hands of Democrats. But what is concerning, unfortunately, throughout right now primaries, when Democrats were choosing who's going to be running for them to get the seat in the House, there are a lot of, I would say, more very left-leaning candidates being chosen by Democrats. And this is the sentiment that's happening right now in democratic society, in Democratic Party. I wouldn't say society, Democratic Party in general. And it would be okay if we would talk just about the political views, more leftist political views, which historically not very favorable for Ukrainians, because left is leaning toward communism, and it's something that Ukraine will never want to come back. Socialism, communism, all these terrible things that had been brought to Ukraine throughout the USSR. It's a big generational trauma with which Ukrainians will never be able to align. It's one thing, it's the policies, but statements of those people who've been chosen during the primaries are kind of conflicting regarding if they want to pursue with supporting Ukraine. At least there are some of the people who've been chosen by Democratic Party at the primaries. It's a question if they're going to win, if they're going to take a seat, but the general sentiment it's concerning regarding the cooperation with Ukraine and the constant support of Ukraine. So this is something that Ukraine actually should be paying attention to about the rebuilding relationship with Democrats, because we kind of got used to this Republican red wave and forgot the fact that this red wave may a little bit slow down and give some space for Democrats, and they have their own changes inside of a party. And it's a big important question for Ukrainian diplomats to understand how to work with those changes and how to be ahead of them. And those feelings, the sentiment of more left-leaning candidates we can see in election of mayor in New York, Zoran Mamdani. He is publicly stating more socialist views and more views that could be a problem for Ukraine. And he hasn't been speaking publicly about anything to support Ukraine. I know he's just, we can say, just a mayor of New York. It's not like he's involved in international policies. But he became a very influential figure among Democrats. And some of the people who've been chosen during the primaries been elected by him. And it's a very important thing, because right now the leader of a party in the House, it's Hakeem Jeffries. He's leading party in the House, and he was nominating his own candidates, but they didn't win among Democrats, and Democrats chose those candidates that had been chosen by and proposed by Zoran Mamdani, who's the mayor of New York, which means he has a lot of influence inside of Democratic Party, and we need to pay attention closely to his actions and to where exactly Democrats are leaning and moving right now.
Well, that's a great point. Kateryna, thank you so much for your first-hand experience and for your insights and information that I not fully understand sitting here in Ukraine and Kyiv. So that was very specific and accurate. Thank you so much. Kateryna Lisunova, Ukrainian journalist and media advisor at Razom for Ukraine, was with me at Channel 24. Thank you so much.